I remember when I was 4, like being afraid of my dad. And now at my age, I realize my dad was 24. I should have told him to shut the F up. Is this thing on? Welcome to our very first episode of Note to Herself. I am Kia.
And I'm Krystel.
And we're excited to be your hosts on this adventure journey. So, Krystel, when you think about like what made you decide, like, let's stop talking about it and let's start being about it.
Let's start getting real.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was wanting a space where women our age could hear conversations and feel seen, especially in this ripe old age of, 40 plus. And we wanted conversations from people like us who were still navigating, still trying to figure it out, not perfectly polished.
Right.
Not coming across as an expert of any sort. Just two grown women navigating life. And
in their 40s.
In their 40s.
In their midlife awakening,
yes,
as I like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So each podcast, has different ways of doing things. For us, it was important for us to talk about things that, again, we talk about all the time, but we've kind of put them into like categories. So every time that you enjoy one of our podcasts, you'll hear some of those segments. So do you want to tell everyone about the segments of the podcast since this is our first show?
It's our first show. Yeah. So as she said, there are a few segments that we're going to do in every episode. So the first is the hot flash. This is just us sharing our hot take. What is pissing us off this week? Yeah. And, things that get you worked up. And then after that is life's little luxuries. And those are the things that, make us happy, that we dabble in. The things that they may not be big or flashy, but they make us feel good. And then after that is where we jump into the conversation, and that's the nitty gritty. That is us unpacking all the things, what we're learning in this stage of life and the things that a lot of women say behind closed doors that we're going to say out loud.
We're going to say out loud. So today's conversation is, again, she's in her grown woman bag. And we're talking about authenticity. We're talking about identity. And really one of the reasons why we thought it was important for this to be our first episode is one of the conversations we're having all the time is about how much we have changed and how much we feel more settled, not completely settled, but more settled in our 40s. So I feel like in our 20s, or at least I can speak for myself. In my 20s, in my 20s, I thought I knew myself. Was wrong. And then in my 30s, I really felt like I had to explain myself all the time. I was consistently explaining myself and trying to prove myself. And now in my 40s, I feel like I've finally kind of figured things out. And I just get to be myself. And I'm really loving this phase of just being free and being me. But before we get to that, you talked about hot flashes. Now, I have not had a hot flash before, and I am happy to never have one. I'm on HRT, so I'm trying to get ahead of the hot flashes. Mm-hmm. But like you said, there are lots of things that really get under my skin. So what is your hot flash, your hot take this week?
Ooh. Well, you'll probably hear me talk about this throughout several of these episodes, but it is what we call performative soft life. It is, Kia and I both are TikTok doom scrollers. And if you're on TikTok...
Yes. It is my entertainment. It is my TV. I don't even watch TV, but anyway.
It's a luxury, okay? Makes me happy, and I know it makes you happy. But it's the performative soft life. It's the waking up, the beige pajamas, the walking around the house in the cashmere pajamas, and, the aesthetic. Everything is aesthetic. The opening the windows with the sunlight coming in, the jet setting. It's just the idea of being performative and it is relaxing, becoming a performance, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, do we have to buy a personality? If I'm drinking coffee, can I drink it out of, my insurance mug that I got for free, or do I need a WEC mug? So I just want, as much as I enjoy it, I love the aesthetics of TikTok. It's very relaxing when we see that, but I just think it's becoming too much of a thing now, and it's relaxing is supposed to be for real and calm. And you can relax any way you want to. You don't need, cashmere pajamas. If you want cashmere pajamas, that's fine. But it's just becoming a thing. It bothers me.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dichotomy too, because I can get caught up in watching like someone's get ready with me or something, or someone's like morning routine. And then I'm thinking I'm watching you get out of bed. I'm not really watching you get out of bed, right? I'm watching you set up a camera and then get out of bed.
To go get back in the bed.
Yeah. And when I think about it, I was like, I think sometimes like, oh, that could be cool. And like, I understand they're making a lot of money. It's work to them. Sure. It's a job. When I think about that for me, for myself, no, I'm not doing that. I'm getting up once. I'm getting up once. Like, I don't know. I don't have it in me, but kudos to those who do.
Yeah. I mean, 35, step skincare routine. Shout out to that.
Shout out to that. Mine is 4. And if I can get it down to 2, I probably would.
Look.
But my skin would say no.
Okay.
My skin would say no. Okay, so my hot flash this week is completely different. So we're about to take a turn. We'll take a quick left right here. So we're talking about identity and authenticity today. And my hot flash, my hot take is not a new identity, but embracing what has been a part of my identity for a while that I don't think I've said, even to my family. Mm-hmm. So if my mom, my granny, my sister are watching, brace yourselves. But for me, religion is not part of my identity. I don't connect with Christianity, mm-hmm. particularly how Christians or those who claim to be Christians treat each other. And there's something about just wanting to be a good person, to have a moral compass just because, not because I have connected with this very fear-based, what I feel is fear-based religion. Mm-hmm. Now, people around me, free to practice. I have friends that are Muslim, I have friends that are Christian, I have all types of faith, and I want you to practice your faith around me. I love the fact that there's freedom in that. And so I'm not one of those that's you can't be a Christian around me. You can't be sure. I don't want to hear none of that. No, I want to hear about it. Mm-hmm. I just don't personally practice, but I treat people well. Mm-hmm. I feel like kindness is more important than being nice. Mm-hmm. I'm raising good humans. And so, but religion or particularly Christianity, is not a part of my identity, and I'm starting to claim that. So again, getting real comfortable with who I am in my 40s.
Nothing wrong with that. My husband is actually a pastor, and he allows me to explore my own identity as well when it comes to Christianity, and I'm still getting there.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so let's talk about what I feel like is going to be your favorite segment. And that's life's little luxuries. Yes. So again, we wanted to talk about this because we're not talking about performance. We're not talking about luxury that you have to go out and get. We're talking about the types of luxury that you can integrate into your life every single day. Mm-hmm. And we say that. And then when you tell people what your little luxury is, they're like, what? What? But I love it. But you actually do integrate it into your life. I've seen you, let me not bury the lead. So go right ahead. What is your life's little luxury for Krystel?
My life's little luxury this week and too many other weeks as of recently has been caviar. Now, before you're like, girl, please. Caviar is one of those things that I was telling Kia, we're both children in the 80s. When we grew up, it was lifestyles of the rich and famous. You see people eating caviar on a yacht and you're like, oh yeah, okay, so that's not for me. But it's one of those things, especially now in a time when fast food is $50 for a family of 3. Mm-hmm. You can afford caviar. It is actually quality caviar. It's not that expensive. And I know expense is objective, but for the same price of a McDonald's for 3 people, you could get a gram of caviar or even 30 grams. And I've just been enjoying it. And most of the time I'm enjoying it in my Walmart nightgown in my kitchen with my brown cabinets. And I eat it on everything, ice cream and French fries and chicken nuggets and peppers. And it's just a really good treat. And I think a lot of people, and I'm all about expanding your food palette. Mm-hmm. Me and Kia are foodies. So.
Yeah, big foodies.
Big foodies. And so that's my little luxury. I enjoy it.
I saw someone on, it was probably TikTok the other day. She had a truffle chip, and it looks like there's always creme fraiche with caviar. So that's how you eat it, with creme fraiche.
Yes, it is. It's very creme fraiche is actually, I prefer it over sour cream as of lately.
So where are you getting it from? Where are you getting your caviar from?
So actually, one of the places that I've loved a lot lately is called Caviar Dream.
Okay.
Shout out to them. They want to make caviar inclusive and accessible, which is why their price points are really good. It is woman owned and black owned, first black owned caviar company. So I have been eating them a lot, and I've ate other ones, Kabi. There's a few, but this has been truly, I enjoy their product. They put out a good product, and it is delicious. And last week I was on TikTok. I popped open 2 tins of it. So,
And you order it online?
you can order it online, and I think they're based out of Chicago, so I think a lot of people go there locally. But yeah,
Oh, so they have a flagship store too in Chicago.
pop-ups. She does a lot of pop-ups.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nice,
but,
nice,
you know,
nice.
overnight shipping.
Yeah.
Take it.
Okay, my little luxury. Okay, so backstory. I have a good friend named Erica, and a while ago, I don't know, I think we were like in New York or something. Erica is like us. I don't think you've met Erica before, but if you did, you'd be like, oh yeah, one of us. So she was like, Kia, what's the thing that you have that makes you feel like a rich bitch? And I was like, oh, that's so easy. Do you know what I'm going to say? My Aesop hand cream. My Aesop hand cream.
talked about
I
Aesop.
love my Aesop hand cream. And for a lot of reasons. One, like it's $35 for these hand creams, or at least it was, you know, tariffs. But so, you know, more expensive than your normal like hand lotion, but not completely out of the realm of possibility,
Right.
you know, to splurge. So it's definitely a splurge. But I really enjoy like woodsy, flowery scents. Like I don't like sweet scents at all. And I don't like a lot of perfumes that are alcohol based. So I tend to lean toward like oils and lotions for scents. And even when you just walk into an Aesop store, like it has the whole simple, clean Japanese aesthetic. But the last time I wore my hand cream, I walked in, this gentleman opened the door for me. And when I walked past him, he was like, what are you wearing? You smell like springtime. And I was like, thank you, sir. Yes, I do. I am wearing Aesop. Thank you very much. Usually they only have like 3 brands, 3 different scents available at once. So, but all of them have like you can layer them. Like you can mix and match the scents and they all work well together. But mine is the one in green. I love it. I love it. So yeah, I love really all Aesop products, but the hand cream is something that I can just literally take with me everywhere I go. I always smell good. I always smell like springtime. So
Yes, she's talked about this hand cream a lot. I know it means a lot to her, and she definitely uses it.
It's my jam. If you see me, it's right over there. It's right over there. If you want to smell it when we're done. Yeah. So, okay. You ready to get into the conversation? Pull up a chair. Pull up a chair, friends. Pull up a chair. So it's tea time.
Tea time.
How would you say that you went from finding yourself to knowing yourself, or at least knowing yourself better?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I fully arrived at the whole knowing myself thing, but I'm getting there, right? And we always talk about we're still evolving, we're still growing, even in our 40s.
And hope to be forever.
And hope to be.
Yeah.
You should be, right?
Yes.
But I got married really young. I don't even remember how old I was. I was like 21, 22. My husband was a full-time single dad, so I stepped right into motherhood. And I did not know myself. And all of a sudden, I was somebody's mother. Like
Same.
Oh,
I mean, not the same
But the
situation,
same,
but
yeah.
I had my daughter at 21.
the same
so,
age, yeah. Like that is a big deal, you know. And the truth is, you know, me and my husband also talk, which I love that we're able to have these honest conversations. We had no business getting married that early.
Yeah. I say, if I were in charge, if I ran this place, no one would be getting married before 30.
And I
They
agree.
just shouldn't.
I approve this message.
Have relationships, have a great time, but marriage can't get married before 30.
No,
Yeah.
you don't know who you are. You know, maybe some people do.
You think you do, just
think
like I
you do.
said, you think you know who you are.
I
But
think we knew it all.
I think the ones that do make it is because they have chosen to grow with each other and just accept all of those changes. And not to say that those who, you know, get divorced are not accepting of those changes. But it's tough when you are completely different than where you started out. And especially if if you grow in completely separate ways. If you can grow together, you probably make it. But if you grow differently.
And that's a really great point about growing together, because we did. We were complete opposites and still are till this day. Okay. But as you get older, there's things you start to love more. You also appreciate the importance of some things that are a good thing that maybe you didn't realize were a good thing, you know, about that person. So we've definitely grown together over the years. But my husband has always been, he's a great guy, great provider, all those things. But I was telling Kia that sometimes even getting married early, having what most people would deem like, oh, well, that's good to have a guy that young, be that, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? That available in his marriage. It also stifled me a bit because it stifled my independence a lot.
Oh, okay. So you became like really dependent on him.
Very dependent on him. Very clingy. Not in an annoying way, but just I relied on him for everything. And so it took me a while before I reached that point where I was like, okay, I really need to know myself. And then fast forward, the blog started. I started this blog called Army Wife 101. We were a military family. You know that.
Krystel is OG blogger, y'all. OG. One of the first. Don't be humble right now.
Well, you know. I mean, if you really want to go there. Yeah, but I mean, I did. I started this blog, which, to Kia's point, it became very successful. It was armywife101.com. It was about the military lifestyle. But at that time, this was long before influencers, brands were trying to figure it out. We were all just beginning to do this whole influencer thing. And I became pretty successful in it, made a lot of money, started doing a lot of events, traveling a lot of places, doing all the things. But even that became difficult at a point because here I was, this Black woman in a traditionally conservative space. And then I felt like I still had to play a role. And so perform. Yeah. Everything was curated. Now I'm 43. Getting to that point where sometimes I don't remember. Yeah. But, you know, I went through times of being a people pleaser and, you know, all the things. And now I'm still learning, but I'm also I'm a lot more solid in what I'm going to tolerate, what I'm not going to tolerate, who I'm going to be, who I'm not going to be. I'm trying to not let guilt make decisions for me. So
I love that. I could go on a rant about that. I love that because sometimes it's shady. Have you noticed that sometimes when people are like, I love that or I love that for you, it's like shady. Yeah. It's not real, but I meant like that in the realest way.
No, I know.
Yeah. So how did I go from like finding myself to knowing myself? Several things. I'm not gonna bore y'all with all of the trauma, but there is a lot. But I think the defining moment for me, funny enough, was in a Costco parking lot. So I was in my late 30s at the time, had just moved to Maryland. Hadn't even been here like a year. It was during COVID. My ex-husband, so was my husband at the time, we had quite a blow up in Costco. Okay. In a Costco. Not going to give you details, but after that argument, I drove to a park and really thought I just sat there and I was just thinking about like how I ended up here and how I was so unhappy. And I didn't know how my life had spiraled to like where there was nothing about my life that was actually me at the time. And the question that came up while I was sitting in that park was, if you live to be 80, do you want your next 40 years to look like this? And it was a resounding no. And once that question kind of like came to my conscious, it was like I had to make a change in that moment. I got my own place the next day. Like, I wasn't playing around. I was like...
I never realized it.
Yes, it was the absolute next day. I found a realtor and was like, these are the parameters. I wanted somewhere that was still close to where my ex lived so the kids would be close. Like, it was the next day. It took me a couple of weeks to, like, get application and all that stuff. But the next day is when I found my place. And so now, several years, it's been 5 years since then, I kind of filter everything through this idea of, if you live to 80, which hopefully I do, would you want to do this for the next 40 years? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is a yes, great. But if the answer is a no, I listen to that. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't failed me yet. So that was a big, like, defining moment for me.
Is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You said, I didn't know it was. I didn't know it was the same thing.
I thought we were talking, and we.
A lot of things happen during that time period. A lot of things changed during that time period. So not just getting divorced, I changed jobs. I was in a job with a very toxic, like, crazy people coming after me, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so not only was it, a marriage that wasn't working, and it wasn't his fault. Like, it was mine. Going back to the idea of, like, completely changing. Mm-hmm. We got married when I was 24.
Okay.
At the time, I was like 37, 38, something like that. Like, I was just a completely different person. And when I was 24, I had 2 kids, Krystel, at the age of 24.
Yeah.
I saw this meme. The other day. I can't remember if I sent it to you or not, but I definitely sent it to my kids. And it said something like, I remember when I was 4, like, being afraid of my dad. And now at my age, I realized my dad was 24. I should have told him to shut the F up.
Oh, I remember that. I was crying. That was so hilarious.
And I sent that to my kids, and I know they're thinking the same thing because, like, I was 24 telling a child what to do. Yes. I was a child, right? Yes. And so, like, a lot of the breakdown of that marriage, not every marriage has its issues, but, most do.
Yeah.
It wasn't like issues that we couldn't get over. I think mostly we were just completely different, or I was just a completely different person than when I was 24. Yeah. And, the thing about my ex is he hadn't changed. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I recognize, like, he stays the same. Mm-hmm. I was the one who changed the most. And so I was the one who had to make a change if I wanted my life to look different. And I don't want to minimize, like, that, we just grew apart. Like, there were drastic differences where we just were not aligned anymore. Right. We have a healthy co-parenting relationship. I think things are fine. I think he'd still consider me a friend, and vice versa. And so, and since then, continue to make changes. New job, new man, new dating and all of those things. So and much happier now. And I feel like I know myself so much better. I can listen to my intuition, and it wasn't a straight path. Like, as soon as I got a divorce, everything was perfect. You will find that I made some drastic mistakes even after that, because you do think you make a big change like that and you think, I figured it out. No, you still need to work through that trauma. There was a lot of inner work
now
to do.
Now that you're outside of that.
Exactly. A lot of people say this, they think that, like, I grieved inside that relationship, so as soon as I'm out of that relationship, I'm ready for the next. And that can be partially true, but you find that you could end up in a worse place. The relationship that I had after my divorce was more traumatic than the divorce. Okay. So, there is some inner work that you have to do. Again, we've talked about the fact that constantly evolving on a constant journey. And I think the thing that is most helpful is being committed to self-awareness. I think that's a big thing, like, really not running from yourself, but really leaning in and figuring out, why do I act like that? Why does that thing trigger me? And that doesn't mean that, like, because you're triggered, everybody has to change how they act around you, unless they're being toxic, but sometimes we are the toxic one. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the self-awareness of, like, what do I need to change? What do I need to work on to be a better human, to be the best version of myself? Yeah.
That ties into the accountability aspect.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't want to.
Nobody wants accountability. You want other people to take accountability
while you remain the same.
Exactly. Can't do that. We'll get into that whole, like, this is just how I am. Well, if you're an asshole, then you might need to change how you are. Something to think about. But I feel like clarity in that moment, that defining moment that I talked, it cost me everything, but it really gave me myself, or at least gave me the starting point for who I was coming to be. So I am not religious, but I am spiritual. Mm-hmm. And I feel like for me, I was here to learn a lesson. I call it my soul contract. What is the lesson that my soul is learning on this go round? And for me, my lesson this go round is to not self-abandon, to not abandon myself. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the start of learning that lesson. On each episode of Note to Herself, either myself or Krystel will end reading a note to ourselves. That note could be to ourselves from our childhood, from 10 years ago, or even our future selves. On today's episode, because so much happened in my life around 5 years ago, my note is to myself 5 years ago. Dear Kia, you are trying so hard to be understood, and it's costing you everything but being fully yourself. And unfortunately, all the things that you're trying, like if you just explain better or adjust yourself, soften more, even get harder, then you'll finally feel like you'll belong, like you'll be accepted. What you don't know is that belonging actually isn't the goal. The life you want, the love, the relationships, the community, all of that will begin the moment you stop asking permission to be yourself and exist just as you are. Unbeknownst to yourself, you actually can't strategize your way into the life you want. You can only listen to your inner voice, truly learn what you want and need, and just start being. And guess what? One day you're going to wake up and you'll no longer introduce yourself with apologies. You will no longer make your voice smaller for other people's comfort. You will no longer confuse being liked with being aligned. And you'll learn that while authenticity costs, pretending costs more. And one day, you'll wake up and realize that every moment that you spent trying to be palatable to others was time that you could have spent being free. So hold on, sweet girl. You are closer than you think. And life is about to get really, really good.